Whom the Gods Fear, by J. Wdowski. Chapter 23. It was not long before they entered a conference room with a lone older man in the same colored and cut uniform as the ensign. On the admiral's jacket epaulets were 4 gold pentagons. 5 empty chairs were on the opposite side of him. 2 androids in fleet uniforms stood behind him. "That will be all, ensign. You and the Marines can wait outside." "Aye, sir." The ensign saluted the admiral, but first exchanged friendly smiles with Captain Mahan before leaving the room with the Marine attachment. They sealed the hatch behind them. "Please take a seat," the older man requested. "I am Admiral Granite, commander of the 1st Battle Fleet." Ruble turned to Commander Granite. "Your father?" "Yes, I am his father and his commanding officer." "Gentlemen, and Ambassador Stern, please take a seat. Would you like something to drink?" "Yes, I would like a green tea." The admiral turned to one of his cabin boy androids to fetch the ambassador her tea. The cabin boy returned quickly from a small table with a steaming hot cup of green tea and placed it before Rebecca. She picked up the fine porcelain cup with saucer, smelled the aroma of the tea, and then took a sip. "Excellent tea, Admiral." "I am glad it meets with your approval, Ambassador Stern. I have come to the understanding you have very high standards and are a difficult person to please." Rebecca was insulted by the admiral's statement. Fearing his position and power this time, she bit her own tongue. "Admiral, I wish to file an official complaint against Mr. Yeager. He has willfully ignored a government directive to leave this star system. He could have stopped the venture from entering the Shing system, preventing their destruction, but instead ignored my command as an ambassador of the EGG. He had me manhandled by Captain Mahan's Marines and released Shingnese prisoners of war without the proper authority." "I am already aware of all your charges against Mr. Yeager," informed the admiral. Sensing the admiral was ignoring her complaints against Glenn, she ignored her previous fear of the admiral and tried to pull rank on him as an ambassador of the EGG. "I demand you place Glenn Yeager under arrest. You, young lady, is in no position to demand anything on my flagship." The admiral turned a stone glare at Rebecca. Admiral Granite, unlike his son, looked as if he was made of granite. His body was solid and strong. Upon his short, thick neck was the head and face of one clearly weathered with years of experience. His emerald green eyes were as alert as any younger man's. His white hair and beard were of a very short buzz cut. From a distance it gave the illusion of him being completely bald. "I do not think you respect my authority, Admiral." "You are correct, Miss Stern. I do not recognize your authority in this theater of operations at all." The admiral had enough of Rebecca. He used his 4-armcom to summon in the ensign and her Marines. "Please escort Ambassador Stern back to the hangar bay." "Aye, sir." The ensign followed his orders and had one of the Marines take her by the arm and drag her out of the conference room. They closed the hatch behind them. Even without Shingnese ears, they could all hear her predictable slurs, threats, and protests, this time aimed mostly at Admiral Granite, yet still many towards Glenn. Her screeching nasal voice finally faded into the distance as she was escorted away. "Now, gentlemen, are you sure I could not get you something to drink?" "I could go for a pint of ale," Captain Ruble requested. The admiral turned to one of his cabin boy androids and ordered 5 mugs. For the next 2 hours, Glenn had explained to the admiral the situation, that the Shingnese did not have Demi and his crew, and the attack on the Venture was a lone fighter pilot's action. He pointed out that the Shingnese had already punished the pilot themselves. The admiral's son backed up all that Glenn had to say. Captain Ruble remained silent and drank his ale and even requested a second pint during the debriefing. "I understand your meaning, Mr. Yeager, but the Shingnese now do have hold of the hyper-engines and the D-mass generator of the Venture. I do not think you understand how hot the war fever is back on Earth. The children of extremely wealthy and powerful individuals were on that ship. Many of them control both forums of the EGG and major media to shape public opinion. Joshua Dorfman has donated his entire fleet of interplanetary luxury liners. They are being fitted with hyper-engines and converted into troop transports as we speak. I think only the appearance of Demi and his crew unharmed by the Shingnese may put a halt to this runaway magrail." Admiral Granite knew better to not call his father Dad on his flagship, even if only in front of Ruble, Glenn, Mahan, and 2 cabin boy androids. "The main Shingnese fleet will not reach you for at least 4 months. That is if you do not try to meet them halfway." You keep forgetting the task force of heavy Shingnese ships from Shing 6 is also on its way here. Captain Ruble pointed out, giving himself a foam mustache from the head of his second pint of ale. As stealthy as we are, our numbers and vessel sizes still make us easy for them to detect. Once we jump into their space, they knew we are here, informed the Admiral. My main battle wagons do not have the stealth attributes of our scout frigates. It is more of an ability to make it difficult for their targeting systems to lock in on us. Those ships from Shing 6 have already made a 180 and are heading back to join up with their main fleet from their home world. This conflict is not necessary. Even with the Shingnese having the engines and D-mass generator of the venture, it will be at least a year before they could reproduce them. You are facing 1 to 2 odds on their home turf. Return the fleet to Earth, Admiral. Glenn requested. It would be the prudent thing to do, Admiral, supported his son. I am very confident we can hold our own at those odds, even on their home turf. Good for you, Admiral. Kick those Shingnese asses, cheered Ruble. But I do agree with you and my son, Mr. Yeager. If we can avoid this conflict, it would be the best for both worlds. I just do not have the authority to turn this fleet around without engaging the enemy. Then I request you give us those 4 months to find Demi and his crew. Maintain your position here. Do not go to engage the Shingnese fleet. Admiral, before you agree to Mr. Yeager's request, I think we are all forgetting one very important fact, stated Ruble just after drying his mug of its last drop of ale. And that being, Captain, inquired the Admiral. The Shingnese. What of the Shingnese? Glenn asked. The old saying is it takes 2 to fight. True, but it also takes 2 to make peace. If only one refuses not to fight, then what you have is a beating, a massacre, not peace, explained Ruble. Glenn understood where the captain was leading. He was making good sense. You do not think the Shingnese will agree to peace if we offer it to them? Asked the Admiral. The Browns might, so would the Greens. But the Whites, they cut their own throats instead of surrendering to us. I think you have an enemy that doesn't like to lose. They are only 1 vote on the Tri-Council, responded Glenn. By the Earth standing down, the other 2 members can outvote the Whites. We need only to prove Demi and his crew were not taken by the Shingnese to convince the EG to sue for peace. If we sue for peace first, is not a defeat for the Shingnese. The Whites can still maintain their honor. What of our honor? Captain Ruble snapped at Glenn. How are millions of deaths on both sides giving us honor? Glenn asked. These animals are clearly itching for a conflict with us. Even Ambassador Stern understands that now. Captain Ruble angrily responded. The fact your actions with the Venture's first mission and not stopping Dorfman when you could have stopped all of this. I am convinced these short little bastards would have soon or later found another excuse to attack us. We have the fleet here now. We should end this threat before they do have the hyper-engines to attack the Earth. Enough. You have made your point, Captain Ruble. Please go wait with Ambassador Stern. Admiral Granite called in a Marine to escort Ruble back to the hangar bay. With Ruble removed, the Admiral calmly continued his debriefing with the remaining 3 men from the Polo. The Admiral agreed to at least give Yeager the 4 months to find Demi and his men. He would maintain their position and would not move further into the system to engage the approaching Shingnese fleet. Yeager made one last request of the Admiral before they returned to the Marco Polo.